Welcome to Headliners. This is your first look at Sunday's newspapers with three comedians. I'm Stephen Allen, and tonight I'm joined by two great arguments for anger management lessons in school. It's Leo Kearse and Paul Cox. How's it all going?
Lovely work, Steve.
Yeah, no, I just think that's the vibe that I get.
Angry middle-aged men.
Criticising it, yeah. As if I can judge angry middle-aged men. It's effectively what I am as well. This is diversity for you on a panel, isn't it? Life gone well? Good weekend?
It's all right. Yeah, I've mostly been doing GB News. The Free Speech Nation that's going out tomorrow. So if anybody's wondering why I'm wearing the same clothes on Free Speech Nation tomorrow, I'm not just scuzzy. I mean, I am scuzzy, but there's a reason this time.
Have you reached that level of celebrity like the royals who wore the same outfit twice? I think we'd accept it from you. We'd be like, yeah, because, you know, it's a Sunday. TK Maxx is shut.
Yeah.
And if you see me tomorrow at the Battle of Ideas wearing the same clothes as today, it's because I'm sleeping in a bin out the back of GB News. And this is how I live.
This is Zone 1, though, so this is like a good bin.
I've got a bin with a view.
Nice. Right, let's take a look at your front pages to begin with. The Observer goes with Reeves will tax businesses to plug £9 billion gap in NHS funds. The Mail on Sunday says, voters, we don't trust Labour with our money. The Sunday Telegraph, millions to be given NHS smartwatches. Sunday Times says leaked papers reveal chaos at heart of HS2. Is that still a thing? The Eye says income tax set to rise for millions past 2028. And the Sunday Mirror, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. And that's the front pages. So we start off with The Observer, Leo. What they got?
Yes, The Observer, which is what The Guardian's called on a Sunday, goes with Reeves will tax businesses to plug £9 billion gap in NHS funds. So this is another... I guess this is a smaller black hole. This part of the bigger black hole that Reeves keeps talking about, that keeps getting bigger. But yeah, I mean, she promised she wouldn't tax income, but by taxing business, where do you think they're going to get the money from? They're going to get it from their employees. So you're essentially sort of taxing. All taxes have to be paid by somebody eventually. And
also, you say by somebody. There's only ever one type of person who can ever pay a tax.
Somebody who's earning.
Yeah, or just people.
Yeah.
I mean, like, eventually it all trickles down to us.
Yeah, and this is like, I mean, this is going to be a growth-destroying tax. Like all taxes, I think when you come to the Laffer curve, which shows, you know, when you put taxes up too high, you actually reduce the amount of tax that the government takes because you've put the tax up too high so people try and find a way around it, or it just dissuades them from doing the work. I mean, they put a tax on cigarettes to stop you smoking cigarettes, make you smoke fewer cigarettes. They put a tax on, you know, sugary drinks to make you stop drinking sugary drinks. What do you think a tax on income does? What do you think a tax on business does?
It's the inheritance tax famously stops people dying.
Well,
it really works.
Imagine.
Well, stuff like that, what it can do, like capital gains tax or whatever, is make people hold on to assets in the hope that, you know, the Tories are going to get in and the tax is going to go, so then they'll sell them then. You know, the stamp duty thing clogs up the housing market. And what you should really be doing, which obviously Labour are never going to do, is slashing the state. All this stuff. The Arts Council, all these pointless PhDs, the diversity, equity and inclusion departments, afuera. We don't need them. Get the money from them.
I mean, it's semantics, isn't it? It's, you know, taxing business. This is The Observer, as The Guardian. They're painting it as taxing business, which they think is good. Business bad, taxing business good. Ultimately, obviously, it's the people that get taxed. And it's a manipulation as well for me because, you know, they use they roll the NHS out if they want to manipulate taxpayers into believing that it's a good thing. Oh, it's going to fund the NHS. When Ed Gastric Band is going around the country talking about his green madness or his carbon madness, they never talk about the NHS then. They never say, oh, we're going to spend £10 billion a year to try and hit a target that's mythical, you know, like the Wizard of Oz. It doesn't exist. Yeah. It's just a little green man behind a curtain. It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
Do you think the NHS is effectively the donkey in that ITV2 advert?
Yeah.
You try and watch a bit of daytime TV and it gets you right in the feels, doesn't it? That donkey! How am I meant to not give it money? Because they show you the...
That's exactly
also,
what's happening.
You know, they filmed that advert about 12 years ago, so...
Oh, don't tell me what happened.
Sorry, he was in that glue.
The donkey is well dead.
Yeah.
He was in that Tesco meal deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite delicious.
Also, something else that Labour are doing is they're doing some sort of fudgy accounting. So they're changing the definition of debt, so it doesn't include our quantitative easing debts, which are obviously there because of Labour in the first place. So that means they can borrow more because they won't be breaking their borrowing rules, but they are really.
I mean, one of the changes to that, though, is that you then get to count some of the assets that you accrue by spending from borrowing, and that kind of makes sense. Like, if you borrow loads of money and buy something that's worth something, that should be be on your books.
Yeah, I guess, and also Rachel Reeves has said, she is going to invest in our infrastructure, which I guess would then have a value. Is that what you're saying? It'll have a value, so it's not, the money hasn't just gone out the window.
Yeah. And it means like if you borrow money to give it to students, and you instead of just see the money as a borrowing, if you lend that money to students, you technically at some point get that money back, unless it's written off, and you just have a percentage of how much you expect to reclaim. So it's keeping a record of what debts are owed to you as a government as well.
Yeah.
That's mixed in there. But that's sensible and boring, and that's what no one likes. But yeah, burn the place.
Big old story at the top there, I don't know if you noticed, Steve, the secret history of crisps. I mean, I've got a not-so-secret history with crisps, which I'm willing to talk about.
You're out.
Yeah, I'm proper out.
You're out of the cupboard.
Yeah.
Right, let's take a look at the next one. Paul, we turn to the Sunday Telegraph.
We do indeed. Millions to be given NHS smartwatches. The NHS again. Smartwatches, of course, because this is part of Labour's 10-year plan. 10 years, oh my God. 10-year plan to save the health service starts with technology transformation. Look, we don't need 200 quid watches to tell people to eat less and move more. If we're going to do anything like that, let's just invent something that goes around their neck and chokes them when they get to the second pack of biscuits.
Like a shock collar.
No more, Paul. This. I get this, right? This is. I just don't think it works. I'm a member of the fat community. If you give me this watch, I'm going to sell it and buy kebabs. But that's what's going to happen here. I see this as a commodity. I can sell this on and get myself something delicious to eat. I'm not sure that this would work. Maybe it's not too dissimilar to the Ozempic thing, although the Ozempic thing is just a huge experiment. We're just going to basically poke needles into fat people and see what happens.
You're not going to hit any organs.
No, well, this is exactly it. And, do these watches fit?
You think they're going to have an extender?
Like elasticated smartwatches.
Like when a fat person gets on a plane and they have to get an extra seatbelt thing. I mean, I've got one of these smartwatches. I don't know if it's made me fatter or fitter or anything, but I can tell you it's a rubbish watch. It's sort of like a watch from the old days, except you've got to charge it every few days, like a mobile phone. So it's terrible. Like watches in the old days, in the 80s, never had to charge them. You just looked at them, you could tell what the time was, and they didn't nag you about being fat. They're much better. What we really need is, when you get to the biscuit aisle in the supermarket, there's got to be some kind of narrow gap that only thin people can get through, and that'll solve the problem. So, you diet until you have earned that biscuit.
So I've got a smartwatch as well. I do like that idea, like the split experiment, but bigger than photons, just people. I like it. So I've got a smartwatch as well. Same thing, the charging's annoying, so I've been looking into buying a new one. You can get them up to 2 weeks worth of charge. Still, in the old days, you forgot your battery.
Yeah. Well, they've missed a trick here. Shouldn't they have kinetic smartwatches that basically charge on movement?
Yeah.
And that's how you should be able to eat as well. Put one of these things, because it's, this is what's going to happen with Labour. They're very authoritarian in a soft way. But basically, if they put something around your wrist that unless you move, you're not allowed to eat, that might work.
The kinetic charging would just be from when you're lifting pies to your face. So it'd be charged and it'd be not working.
Also,
but I've been looking into it, and the one thing I do think they're good about is it's not just saying that you've not moved and how many steps you've done. They take your pulse, and if you look at the wave that happens, there's so much that you can work out about which vitamins and minerals, rather, you're deficient in by looking at the shape of the T wave and the U wave and all this stuff. So that, I'm afraid, that's probably the future. Wearable tech that actually works out if your heart's got a problem.
But enforced by government.
No, well, is it enforced? If it's enforced, no. If they buy you one, I'll have that, because this one needs
the doctors are
chargeable.
barely seen anyway. You don't see a doctor. You see a paramedic called Andy who wants to look at your genitals, even though you've got toothache. And I'm not sure that this... My experience, sorry.
That wasn't a paramedic, Paul. Sorry to say it. Paramedics don't hang around in nightclubs.
That Halloween costume was worth every penny.
All right, before we get sued, let's move on to the Sunday Express, Leo. What have they got?
So the Sunday Express have blame Keir for winter OAP deaths. This is coming from Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick, who's blasted the cruel Prime Minister. I'm sure Robert Jenrick would never be cruel himself if he was in power. Not at all. But yeah, I mean, he's got a great point. The cuts to fuel allowances for OAPs. I mean, even though I think Keir actually had a point doing them, it's terrible politics. And also we can see in Rachel Reeves' budget, there's no sort of payoff for the pain. It's not like when Thatcher had the market reforms and crushed the unions and introduced, free market free markets to the British economy and like really propelled Britain forward. We're not really going to get any of that. We're just going to get the same sort of stagnation, except now some old people are going to freeze to death.
Do you not think an extra 400 quid on a state pension is a bit of payback? Because that's the amount that it's going to go up by next year.
That's not a bad point. It's not a bad point.
Next year.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is next year.
It's going to be cold in December.
But it's all about optics, isn't it? You know, this year they're going to take it away, and the first death of somebody that could have had it is going to be attributed to it. I mean, it says at the top here, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I know that's related to something else. I assumed that was Keir Starmer talking to the elderly population of the UK.
You're right, it's an unforced error, isn't it? You've basically taken credit for deaths that would have happened anyway, even if no one would have changed anything mathematically. Deaths happen in the winter every year, and now they've made it their responsibility.
They have made their responsibility, and I think it's also true to say that there will be deaths associated to it. It's going to be very easy to prove, isn't it? You know, Mildred dies. Mildred's neighbour says Mildred couldn't afford to pay for the heating bill, so she didn't and chose, to eat instead. Yeah. And now she's no longer with us.
Paul, quick hit on the Daily Star Sunday. This is the story everyone's been talking about.
Big news, Conkergate. I know we've all been waiting for this. That's why we put it last. We're gentlemen at World Conker Championships, and we don't cheat. I've been playing and practising for years, and I know that's how I won. I'm not guilty. So this is King Conker David Jenkins was told of his joy after he was officially cleared of cheating with a stainless steel nut in a controversy that rocked the world of sport.
Stainless steel nut makes it sound like it's something that goes on a bolt. It will look like a conker.
Well, was it actually stainless steel?
Do you know what? I've not checked the
could have just been regular old steel.
Certainly had iron in there, but whether it had enough carbon in there as well to make it steel...
Was there a stain?
You're right. We need more details.
Also difficult to relate to because we're not 7. We're trying to hang around with 7-year-olds.
Neither's he.
That's the point. Yeah. Why?
No, exactly. Look at him. What's he doing playing with his conkers in public?
Before we get sued, let's move on. You don't want to upset him. He's got a stainless steel conker. That's the front page is done.